to LOA Today. I'm Walt Jason.
With me today is Debbie G of Spirituality Gone Wild.
This is your daily dose of happy. We are so happy you decided to join us today. And we're still hoping that Neil's going to be able to join us as well, but we'll just have to see. He indicated he wanted to be here, so something may be hanging him up. Maybe he shows up in a little while, but we'll just continue onward because we didn't want to wait. We got a great guest joining us today, courtesy of Debbie G, Kirk Nurmi. And I've been learning a lot about Kirk just in the lead up to the show here today. And this guy's like, pseudo famous here. This guy has a background that just like, if you followed what he was involved with a number of years ago, you know all about it. But for those of you who don't, like me, because I didn't really follow it at all, here's a little bit of an introduction, which he very kindly just supplied. So Kirk rose to international prominence as the lead counsel for the infamous Jodi Arias. The stress of that case brought cancer into his life. And with cancer came big changes, a whole new life, a life wherein happiness is his beacon. And with this beacon in view, Kirk has written for the New York Daily News. He's authored 8 books and has spoken all around the country. And in October of 2020, he debuted his new one-man show, Overcoming Jodi Arias. And Kirk has also appeared on Crime Stories with Nancy Greco. This is like an amazing background here. So first of all, Kirk, thanks for joining us today. It's great to see you and great to meet you.
Well, it's great to meet you, and it's always fun to hang out with Debbie G. She's like a bolt of unicorn glitter and caffeine all wrapped into one. So
good description. I like that. Yeah. That's very good.
I love this. I got to jump right in, and Kirk, it's so good to be with you again as well. I want to just throw a couple other accolades that Kirk has under his belt that is shrinking ever so quickly. And
This is true. But I learned to see. I'll let you go, and then I'll tell you my secret about my belts. But
okay.
Okay.
I love it. So one of the things that I love about you, Kirk, is the transformation that you bring, the hope that you bring, and the inspiration that you are to all of us. And not just through the belt that's shrinking, but also through your mindful practices, your soul, dude, you rock. You have got these incredible practices that I just love. And I want to give a quick shout out to Phil Stolo, who I've known since I was 18. Love you, Yogi. And Joe Sliker. Hello, darling. Y'all know who that is. That's my better half. And
Woo!
John Stewart from the UK. It's so good to see you. All right, Kirk, how are you shrinking this belt so much? I mean, seriously, you're killing it.
Sure, yeah. One of the things that isn't on my bio because it hasn't come out yet is in January, I reached that mark, and I was talking to Walt off the air about my cancer diagnosis. We just talked about it. That began in 2015, and in 2016, my cancer was declared in remission after the 6 rounds of chemotherapy. Anybody who's dealt with cancer would know that you're in remission for 5 years. And that 5-year mark is when you become cancer free. So 2021 was coming up January and I'd started performing and doing a bunch of different things. And I have a joke in my one man show that if people believed, that I believe Jodi Arias' story, that I must have some untapped Oscar worthy acting ability. So given the theory that you might have heard is that, the best jokes contain an element of truth, I just started to, launch a bit of an acting career. And what happened with that, what flowed from that, if you will, is, these things when we follow our heart and passion, things flow, right? And one of the things that came into my world was the chance to be a part of a Amazon Prime Fitness reality show, we'll call it, called Radical Body Transformation. And so with that program, I began that because, going back to the cancer, this was like January, February. I really wanted to recapture my health. My body was a lot different. I mean, I gained weight through chemotherapy. I had joint pain after chemotherapy. There was a lot going on after chemotherapy. And I decided I really wanted to not just lose weight, but capture my fitness. And this just seemed like a perfect program to do that in. And in a way, it was kind of cool because I got to hopefully inspire other people that are dealing with cancer. because while I know that there's people out there watching this show that are either waiting to hear whether they have cancer or waiting to hear if a loved one has cancer. And I wanted to give a face to the other side of it, right? Going into it and feeling the loneliness that every cancer patient feels and coming out saying, okay, you cannot just be in remission. You can be a survivor, and maybe you can be in better health than you've been in before. So this program has been really great. I've been in it since, like I say, end of January. So about 10 months now. I've lost over 35 pounds, but it's not just about that, what the scale says. It's about the reformulation of my body. I'm stronger, healthier, feeling more fit than I have in a long time. So it's been a really great experience. And I'm looking forward to that coming out next year so I can add it to my bio there. So
yeah, that's a great thing to add too.
Yes.
I mean, 35 pounds may just be a number, but the way I look at it is that's sort of like the reward for having done the work to make your body better. It's like the indicator, like, oh, look at all that I did. Here's the measure of it. But of course, I get all the health benefits.
But you know what, Walt? I had a moment a couple weeks ago, maybe not even a couple weeks ago, a week ago, that I had some new headshots taken. And I compared those headshots to headshots I had taken a couple of years ago in preparation for my show and some of the other things I was doing at the time. And the difference really struck me, not in terms of the pounds. I was probably about 50 pounds less in the new pictures than I was in the old pictures because I'd done some other things to try to lose weight. But I saw a difference in myself that I can only describe as a better connection to myself.
Nice.
And that to me was the big prize. And I posted those pictures side by side. And, you know, one of them in the heavier picture, I'm actually smiling and everything else. But in the other picture, I was putting on my serious CSI face, right? Because I said in there, you know, I'm a former lawyer dressing like a lawyer, so he can pretend to be a lawyer, right? And that's pretty crazy. But so that was my, you know, CSI face. But I could tell that connection was there, and it was a really cool feeling. And I think that's the best part of all this transformation is that connection to yourself. And you know, one of the things when I was on Debbie's show talking about how I believe that the better care we take of ourselves, the better connected we are to source energy, and the better are we able to receive the messages from source energy as well. So, yeah, that's been just a greatest aspect of that particular journey. And I've gotten some acting jobs as well, so that's good too.
I want to pop in. Y'all curious? Okay, let's look. This is
That's me back in October 2020 at Stir Crazy performing my own man show.
I love it.
Isn't this great? Yeah. Isn't this great? And ta-da!
Yeah, that's the pictures, Walt, that I was talking about.
Before
that's
and
the old headshot and the new headshot on the left there.
Wow.
Huge inspiration.
Yeah.
Love it.
Big difference
Love it.
too. I love that.
A lot of people are disappointed that I wasn't wearing the Ninja Turtle Doc Martens, but you know, we'll get there. We'll get back to that. Don't worry.
You just
I know.
That's just the way it is. But Debbie, did you see the note from Phil Stella? I don't know if you saw that.
Oh, let's bring it up. It says, I had the similar thing happen to me, and had an epiphany, you know, just decided one day to cut out the carbs, cut out sugars, start studying the food, and doing what they do and don't do, drop 75 pounds. Yes, he did. And Debbie can attest to this, stronger, faster, quicker than I've been. I wish people could see more that it's the food you're eating primarily that plays a part with your body. And I love that, Yogi. Totally. I call him Yogi. I mean, y'all realize I have known this. How many of you have friends since you were like 18 that are just like the coolest people in the world still in your life? Yeah. I'm so grateful. What a gratitude moment right now.
Yeah. You just, I sum up what he says. You just can't out exercise a bad diet.
That's true.
No, you can't. You've got to change the food. But I'd love for you, Kirk, to really dive deeper into the mindset and the things that you're doing. How did you keep going when you weren't motivated to go? And what do you do?
Well, look, I was always motivated to go. I mean, I treated it like a job. Yeah, there's days I'm less motivated than others, but I always treated it. I was mindful of the effect I could have on others and the effect I had on myself. And it goes back to something I sent you the other day. I walk my own walk. You know, when I was on Debbie's show, and I even sent her the question the other day through Messenger, I ask myself, who do I want to be today? Which
such a good question.
You might recognize, Walt. You know, you look like a guy who might have had some purple Chuck Taylors in the '80s, and listen to some Oingo Boingo there. But you know, and it's just a funny little song. But I think it's so, and I write about this in my book, Defend Your Greatness. It's such a great metaphysical, really a law of attraction related question, because it does contain that question, who do you want to be today? Because it grounds you to that present moment. Mm-hmm. And so, you know, every day I try to set my vibration before I get out of bed. I try to set a vibration, whether, you know, it's usually around going with the flow or happiness or energy or things like that, right? But when I have those moments when I'm struggling, and even when I don't, I go back to that question, who do you want to be today? Because do I want to be the guy that's like, oh, I don't want to go to the gym, so I'm not going to go to the gym? Or do I want to be the guy who's on that way, on the progress towards the whatever destination, whatever intention I'm looking to fill? Mm. And I always want to be the guy that's on the way. So when I'm sore, when I'm feeling like I don't want to go to the gym, who do I want to be today? I want to be the guy that's on the way. Because let's face it, wherever you're going on a transformational journey, you're probably not going to be able to snap your fingers and have it happen instantly. It tends to take some work, and the body is no different. And that spirit, you know, connection to source energy and everything that I just referenced is also going to take a little work. Now, certain changes can happen at the snap of a finger, sure, but others are different, right? And so divesting myself of that attitude with that, who do I want to be today question is great. And if you ask yourself that all the time, like if you say, who do I want to be today? I want to be somebody who's happy. I want to be somebody who's blah, 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 right? That just builds momentum and steam, as we can talk about it when we're talking about law of attraction. But that just builds momentum and steam for who we want to be each and every day. Because nobody says, oh, I want to be a guy who taps out and eats Cheetos on the couch. Nobody wants to be that person, right? So if you ask yourself that question,
well, some people probably do. To be perfectly honest, there are going to be some.
They might convince themselves that they want to, but most people that come to that conclusion aren't really challenging themselves with that question.
Oh, definitely not. No, yeah. In fact, they're not even interested in challenging themselves with that question.
Right, and so that may be the case, but in bulk, most of us don't want to be that. So I ask myself that question every day that I need that bit of guidance.
Mm-hmm. I don't know if you saw, there's a question from Joe Sliker here. I want to throw it up on the screen if I can here, because he asked about the dieting you did. He says, did you or do you do intermittent fasting?
I do not, Joe. One of the great things about the program that I've been on with Radical Body Transformation is that it's been pretty simple and straightforward. It doesn't require extreme measures. Now, certainly there are people that do things that are a little more extreme in terms of their diet and everything else. But when I went into this, I wanted to go into this transformation by doing it in a way that I thought most people could do it. Meaning I made slight changes to my diet, but I didn't change it wholesale. And what that turned out to is, like I say, that my trainer, I had a coach all through this process. She says, here's how many calories you get to eat. Here's how many grams of protein. Here's how many, grams of carbs, fibers, fat, et cetera, et cetera. And I just fit my diet into those parameters. Mm. And that allowed me, one of my books was a weight loss book because I lost over 75 pounds between the trials on my own using calorie restrictions. And one of the theories that I proffered in that book is the reason that a lot of these programs don't work is we're not invested in it, right? So sure. If we join a program, right, whatever it is, I'm not going to slam any of them specifically. We join it and it doesn't work for us. We say that program didn't work. Yep. Not I failed. That program didn't work for me.
Right.
Whereas if you're invested, you're into it, you can't pass the buck, right? So when I started Radical Body Transformation and had this figure, it's like, okay, I'm going to invest in how I do this and do it in a way where I think most people can recreate in their own lives. And that's the way I wanted to go forward. So, excuse me.
Get that sip there.
Yeah.
Clear that throat.
I don't have a food scale. I don't have anything else. I'm not doing those kind of things. So,
which is probably just as well, because you can drive yourself crazy with that.
Yeah, you can drive yourself crazy. I know some people do that, but I wanted to do it in a way that was easy to recreate. So
that's good.
So
that's really good.
I'm curious. I want to two things. One, I love the whole intermittent fasting because what it does, it gets rid of the visceral fat, and that's why I like it. I personally think it's awesome. But I also agree with you, Kirk, because I've done it that way too, where I'm watching what my intake is. And let's just face it, if your intake's more than your outgo, you're going to get fat.
That's about the bottom line. That's it.
Seriously, you're going to get
fat.
Yeah, I was 290 pounds 22 years ago. And I'm going to tell you, what goes in, if you're not, and movement. That's the other thing, the movement, just getting moving. But Kirk.
Oh, Debbie, you want to get me started on movement? Like moving across like walking across the street? Debbie confessed to me that she's got like a personal trainer.
So I'm going to get my ass beat. I swear to God. Yes, he is. And he's still, I still see him working those people. I'm not like crazy. Can I tell you what? But I did tell you about my big.
I want to get Joe on my team on this too. So
Joe's going to get his ass over there too. We got to get on, kick both. No. I'm not just going to own all that by myself. But I will tell you what we did do. What I will tell you is that we have the rebounder, the jumpy jumps.
A trampoline?
The jumpy jumps. I call them jumpy jumps. I don't know.
Okay.
Trampoline, the personal trampolines. And we set them up in the garage under a rug, and it's like kind of cool. We've only done it once, but I mean,
I love it.
My dedication.
So Debbie, you're telling me one time bouncing on the trampoline with your fiance did not make all your fitness dreams come true? Is that what you're telling me?
I'm telling you that. I'm telling you that.
I don't think I've ever seen Debbie derailed like this. This is really interesting.
It takes more than once.
Apparently.
All right. We've learned a lot about fitness here from Debbie G.
I heard today that I could. No, somebody said today that I just told my cells that to lose the weight, and it worked. And I thought I'm just gonna. Kirk, I'm actually curious about this part. Your mind and what we're telling our body, and do you work some Joe Dispenza style stuff going on in here at all?
You mean this? Are you proposing the simple idea that I can just sit and think and lose weight? Is that what you're? I mean, no, really.
That's what somebody said. That is what someone said.
I mean, I'm not trying to make fun of you. I'm trying to,
No, really. Somebody said this earlier that somebody that they knew, and they just started seeing their cells shrinking and they started losing weight. I've never personally tried that one.
Well, I think a lot of people have.
Yeah. And? I mean, I certainly wouldn't subscribe to that theory. No.
Yeah, probably not, right? I don't think because I've tried sitting and thinking it would go away, but that didn't happen.
Because one of the flaws, I think, of the law of attraction and things like The Secret and everything else is just to believe that you don't have to take any action, that all these things will come to you. You have to take inspired action. So no, I don't think you can sit there and lose weight. No, I'm sorry.
By the way, I wanted to take a moment to kind of destroy a myth.
Okay.
Because the myth is that the movie The Secret and the book The Secret don't teach you to take inspired action. And it's a myth I believed in until I went back very recently, reviewed it again. And guess what? They tell you to take inspired action. So I just wanted to kill that myth before it got too far out there.
Well, let me tell you this way. I think a lot of people see that as that way, right? That you don't have to do anything. Yeah. And that's what I was speaking to. Cause I'm a big believer in inspired action and more than one go around on a trampoline to secure your fitness goals.
Yeah, it's kind of like the old story about the woman who joined the karate class, but then she found out that she actually had to go to the class in order to get benefits out of it.
Yeah, right. It's a different. Yeah. That reminds me of one of the things. Like, I can tell you how a treadmill works. I can get you a good design on how a treadmill works, but unless you step on there and use it, it's not going to. And really, you know what? Though we go back to the other idea too. The value is in the journey, not in the destination, right? So if I could snap my fingers, Debbie, and take however many pounds off you want to lose, I could just do it. Boom. That'd be great. It'd be exciting. It'd be fun. But the value would be in the journey. And the journey I have had to that connection to myself is the real value of something like radical body transformation.
And to kind of, pile on top of that,
awesome.
If you could just kind of wave that magic wand and make, 50 pounds go away, if you don't change the behaviors that put the 50 pounds on in the first place, guess what? They're not going to stay away.
Yeah.
This is like one of the most recurrent thing in the entire weight loss industry is weight that comes back. And it gets very little attention.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And I want to just bring it. Joe says if you think pizza isn't fattening, then it's not fattening. Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure that's not true either. But hey, just saying. But I think that what you just said is so perfect because it's the value in the journey. It's enjoying the moment in the moment. I just watched this movie called Soul, and I keep talking about it. Soul by Pixar. Have you seen that?
Okay, Kirk? I have not.
Seen that. Yeah, I've seen that one. That's good. Really good.
But because the value is in the journey, just exactly what you said. And it is depicted within this movie so well. And it really helps you to see that it's not the destination we're after. It's really being here in this moment today, now, and appreciating the beautiful flowers that are here and just life, appreciating both of your beautiful faces, just the fact that you're here and you're breathing and you're on here with me.
Yeah.
But it's that journey. And part of the journey for me is learning about new ways to approach this thing we call food and diet and exercise. And I want to own my block is because I feel I don't like it's painful at first. I'm just going to be honest. It's kind of painful at first and it doesn't really feel good. And I'm such so that's kind of my thing.
What's painful?
When I start working out, it's like after, it's supposed to make you feel all great. And I'm like, it doesn't feel good.
You know what I equate that to though is it's a physical manifestation of your comfort zone, right? Mm-hmm. It's a physical manifestation of your comfort zone.
Shit.
So when you change what you're doing with your body, the body becomes uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. It's just that simple.
Which is a good thing, actually. That's a signal. That's basically what it is.
Freaking awesome.
That's your body talking to you and saying, hey, pay attention. This is something you need to address, because if you don't, you're not going to like the consequences that come out of it. So it's actually good news when you get that message.
And listen, the side bar to that, if you will, is that, habits, one thing I heard recently, habits are the domain of the ego. And so because the ego thinks that you're comfortable, you're alive, you're doing fine where you're at, don't make any changes. So in essence, you have to retrain your ego. Because now, Debbie, I'm to the point where if I'm traveling to go speak or act or whatever, and I'm out of the gym for a couple of days, that feels just as uncomfortable in a different way as you when you hit those first couple of days at the gym.
Okay. What you just said is so key. For anybody listening right now, please let us know how this is resonating for you and sinking in. That was
Phil actually just
magic.
said something. Let's throw up what he said throw it on the screen. He said, moderation is the key to the success. You have to start out slow and take your time and work as your body allows you to do it.
I love that. But also you guys, this important part about the comfort zone, and thank you, Yogs. I totally agree with you. But also what you just said, comfort zones. Anytime that we're doing something, it's uncomfortable and it makes complete sense. Does that make sense for y'all out there? Anybody? procrastinating on doing something because it's uncomfortable, like I just own that I do.
Yeah, and I would disagree a little bit with Phil. I mean, I think there's obviously some issues when we talk about physicality. You can't go out there and run 20 miles a day and, from going for 0 to nothing and expect that to work out, because yes, you're going to injure your body and things like that. But my challenge in that regard is you still can't stay there. Part of it makes me feel like you're staying in your comfort zone, like moderation and things like that, right? Those to me are limiting beliefs. So, moderation is a great way of limiting yourself. And so saying, do what I'm capable of and start expanding what I'm capable of. And that's why I think, like, when we talk about coaching or anything like that in this domain, somebody can help you expand what you think you're capable of.
Well, I think it's valid. I think it's an excellent point that applies certainly to people who are looking to make radical changes, make dramatic changes in their lives. The thing that I like to remember, though, is that doesn't describe everybody. There are people, and I can think of a few in my own life, who don't want to make big changes in their lives. They're very content with making small changes. As long as they feel the growth coming, then they feel like, okay, their life is progressing the way they want to. And you know what? I applaud them for that. Heck, one of them is my wife.
Yeah.
That's exactly how she feels. And I'm not one to tell her that she's wrong about it or that she can be doing better or whatever, because that's the way she feels about it. So
I think it's a difference between evolution and transformation. I think there's a big difference. And I think what you're talking about, Walt, is evolution. And there's no denying any of that, the validity of any of that. But when we're talking about big changes, then there has to be a difference, right? You've got to pick up the shovel, right?
And if you're one of the people who wants to make a big change, then now you know what the gauntlet is that's been thrown down for you.
Yes.
You can't
I know this is true.
You can't do a halfway measure and expect a full way result, I guess is what the problem is there.
Yeah. That's exactly it.
And I love this. And the reason I do is because when I'm thinking back to when I was 290 pounds and I'm thinking about the extreme things that I had to step into and do and just start absolutely. I just stepped into it. Was it uncomfortable? Oh my God. It was really uncomfortable to lose 150 pounds.
I'm sure.
It was really super uncomfortable let me tell you, want to talk about pain. You know what? I'll never forget it. Rodney Q yoga. I'm sitting in the living room. My children are young. This is a long time ago. And they look at me. They're laughing so hard, these two boys, because they can't stand it, because they say I look like a sumo wrestler. And they're right. I love that. I probably did. But I remember that exact thing right there. I had to be willing to go beyond what was comfortable. Beyond and so this is such a precious day today. What a really great reminder that maybe we're limiting ourselves. When we're not willing to push back, to push and keep going forward, even when it gets a little uncomfortable. That's beautiful. I love that.
And again, I think that comes down to what is it that you want?
What?
This is ostensibly about the law of attraction.
Who do you want to be today?
That's part of it. But ultimately, and this is something we've been playing with lately, LOA can stand for a lot of things that basically expanded well beyond this whole idea of the law of attraction. I mean, it could be life of abundance. It could be Little Orphan Annie. It could be all kinds of stuff. But the point is, it's a lot broader than just this law of attraction thing. Because, just like we don't wake up in the morning and say, well, today I'm going to apply the law of gravity to make sure that I keep my feet on the ground and I keep perfectly balanced. No, it's not the way we think about stuff. I'm just going to go live my life. I'm going to make my intentions and do my stuff and all that kind of thing. And I'm advocating the idea that we want to do the same thing with LOA, with the law of attraction. We want to think beyond that. And that's what I'm loving about this conversation. We are thinking beyond that. We're taking it to the next level. How am I going to live my life? So a long-winded way of getting around to the point that I was originally making is, what is it that you want in life? Once you know what you want, it's actually pretty easy to figure out how to get there. I would put out there the idea that a lot of people haven't been able to figure out what they want from their lives. Because until you can define what you really want, you can't get it. And until you actually can how many people that you know who are perhaps on the fence about what we're talking about here? We're talking about taking that concerted effort, going outside the comfort zone and so forth. How many of the people who are on that fence do you think have a really clear idea of where they want to be? Because I'm willing to suggest the idea that they aren't as clear as you think they are.
Well, here's what I would suggest. So I think they clearly want to know how they want to feel.
Yes, I agree with that. Yes.
Mm-hmm.
And they don't know how to connect to that feeling.
Yes.
And the object or the career path or whatever it is, they don't understand that there's a feeling behind that they really want to connect to. And that those are one of those things, like we talked about earlier, that can happen like that.
That's right.
Right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So the real challenge here is really stretching the imagination, learning to apply that imagination and really put together in as much detail as you can. This is where I want to be. This is what I want to feel. This is what I want to experience as clearly as we can.
I would disagree in the sense that I would say it doesn't require an expansion of the imagination. It requires a decluttering of the things that are blocking you from your imagination.
Okay.
Because we had an imagination when we were 5 or 6, right? Well, especially, those people that are a little older and didn't have video games to play with. We had the Legos, we had the blocks. We had to pretend a little bit, right? We had that imagination. That stuff was all there. We had those, what do you want to be when you grow up? We had all these fanciful ideas and everything like that, right? And what I call the demon of practicality comes back over our head and swats us upside the head and say, you're supposed to do this. You need to join the family business. You're supposed to do that and that and other thing. And then we're, in essence, taught to disconnect from our imaginations.
Exactly.
So what we've really got to do, what I really believe, and I talk about this in Defend Your Greatness, the basic principle of Defend Your Greatness is we are born great. We are born with, for a certain reason, a capacity to do that, to bring something to the planet. And it is the demon of practicality that is more often than not taught to us by well-meaning elders. It teaches how the world is supposed to function, how life is supposed to be, right? And we hear these phrases like, life sucks, then you die, that kind of thing, right? And those become part of the zeitgeist. And we believe those because so many people are telling us things of that nature, whether they're saying it in that way or not. And then that imagination, that hope, that contact, that's why I talk about our contact with source energy. We divest ourselves from that because we're told we need to chase this demon of practicality. And that once we arrive at that destination, that certain point, typically it's an economic point or a career, which I call a transitory identity, that happiness is supposed to follow. The problem is we put the cart before the horse and we stand there when we've reached this destination, this point in our lives where the happiness is supposed to arrive. And we're like a dog waiting for the mailman for the happiness to arrive, and it never freaking shows up.
That's right.
And we were sold a false promise. So if we reconnect to our imagination, then I think that when we can declutter all the crap, all the demon of practicality crap, and a certain amount of it has to be honored, right? We got bills to pay, got to keep the lights on, et cetera, got to feed the kids. I don't have kids, but I think you're supposed to feed them and stuff like that. Right?
It's helpful. It's really helpful.
It helps. Okay.
I've done mine a lot.
All right.
A lot. Yeah.
But you get my point. So, but that practicality becomes limiting, right? And so many people, when we were talking before I started, like that shift I had, I know so many lawyers that are just running out the clock, right? I mean, I got a buddy of mine now who is an attorney. He's like 9 more years of this stuff. He says naughty words, but 9 more years of this stuff. I think, why are you living your life just running down the clock, waiting for this moment to be happy? And it may or may not arrive. I had a buddy who did the same thing. He was an engineer. He's got big plans. He's got the little cubicle and he's got the retirement clock. His retirement lasted no more than 6 months because he was killed in a motorcycle accident. So he was waiting for this moment of bliss to arrive, right? And we're told, I was thinking about this the other day, we're told when we're young and we're graduating high school, this is going to be the best time of your life. Then it's going to suck until you're 65. Then you get to have some more. Then you're going to get to have some more fun. What a bunch of hooey. I think if we reconnect to our imagination, then we start to realize that it's a bunch of hooey.
It's interesting too, because I think it's more than just, obviously the kind of story you told is the one that kind of gets our attention. The guy dies 6 months in and all that.
Yeah.
But it's almost actually worse for somebody who lives a long life, but they still never get the happiness, because it turns out the happiness never shows up.
Yeah.
It can't show up until you decide to become happy, but they
And
don't
guess
tell
what?
you that part.
Yeah, but you can do that today. That's one of those changes
Exactly.
you can do today, right now.
Exactly.
Yes, we could do it right this second.
Right
I
freaking
love,
now.
well, both of you are on point with this. See, and the fact that movie, that's what this is about. It's about he waits his whole life and to play with this, you know, he's a musician and he waits his whole life to be this thing, right? To get on stage and do this thing. Yeah. And he has to face death and then realize through that facing of his mortality and then getting the gig, doing the gig, and then stepping back and going, wait, is that it? And then realizing as he reflects back that all the moments are in the small things. And then he decides, what am I going to do? I'm going to live my life. That's what I'm going to do. I'm going to actually live it. And living our life, what does that mean to you? Choose to get happy now? Yeah, but come on. Yeah, buts don't work. I mean, Kirk knows, Kirk, you know, Kyle Cease.
Yeah.
Kyle rips it up when it comes to the yeah buts, you know? And one of the things I know is that the choice to be happy with right now is simply that. What's a tool that you've used, Kirk, to get happy now, to be okay in the now when you're not okay in the now and you've got to get okay in the now?
Well, I mean, it goes back to, you know, who do I want to be? Do I want to be miserable today or do I want to be happy? I mean, you're going to hear me say that question a whole bunch of times, but it's that powerful to me because do I want to be miserable? Do I want to spend the day being miserable like this? No, I don't. So why would I? And typically there are reasons, you know, whatever we're not happy about, there are reasons to be happy. I mean, I think one of the things, and maybe Debbie, this is what you're referring to, I have a gratitude buddy. Her and I text each other every morning with 3 things we're grateful for.
Nice. I like that practice.
And it has a little bit of accountability to it because you have somebody else. So one person forgets, the other person will text, and then you go, okay, yeah, I'm going to do this, right? And so that's one of those things. And the other little thing I think that I think about is get to versus have to. So many people think I have to go to work. Okay. That may be true on some level, but think about the things you get out of your job, meaning you pay for the electricity, that food, you have to feed your kids that we just talked about, all those sort of things. You get to go to work, so you get that paycheck. Now, it may not be your ultimate destination. I'm not saying you got to be happy with the job that you hate, but you get to draw all these benefits from it, and that you can be grateful for, and that then you can get into a happier mindset right away.
And that has some very important benefits along with it, too, because once you get into that happier mindset, that's when the job can change. That's when it can start evolving in the direction you really want it to go. Well, the reason it can't change is because you haven't gotten into that space in the first place. You got to change.
Or that's how you can evolve either in the job or away from the job.
Well, exactly, yeah, because obviously.
Now y'all are just sparking. This is called Spark the G vibe, okay? So you guys, it's the gratitude vibration, just the law of appreciation. You know, they talk about the law of attraction, but the law of appreciation, and that's exactly what you're talking about, you guys. Because when you get into your day and you start appreciating the water that comes out of your sink. Did y'all know? Because I see you, Susan, right there talking about depression, and I'm going to tell you right now, what Kirk just said, what we've been talking about, some of these tools may very well help you if you put them into action. But if you ever stop to think about the water that comes out of your sink, how did it get there? Somebody out there busted their ass and put these pipes in. Somebody once first had it in their imagination.
Mm-hmm.
Can we just get appreciative over the water that comes out of our sink? And if you touch it, it's very soft.
Mm-hmm.
Gotta love water, you know?
Yeah,
Just
but
to
I
the
mean,
flow.
you can go deeper than that. You can be appreciated for breathing. You can be appreciated for being alive. You can, I mean,
Take
you
it.
know, you know,
Take it.
because that right there, all those things you can sit there and say, "Oh, water doesn't mean it." You know, yeah, it does, and you just have to be willing to accept it too. Like you said, Debbie, a lot of people wouldn't think about the water in their sink, right? This comes out of their sink, but how much they can do with it. But even if it's just our breath, you know, so there's so much to be grateful for out there that you know, it's easy to find three things every morning. Even I just look around, and even if it's just my dog's still alive, my marriage, my breath, the fact that I've got cereal to eat in the morning or whatever I'm eating in the morning, right? So all those things, there's so many reasons to be grateful, and that appreciation can start moving us more towards our bliss and our greatness.
I think this is a good time to bring in the concept of the habit as well. Because when we're not in a happy place, which basically means we're unhappy, we're angry, we're depressed, we're irritated, whatever it might be, we are focusing on that on a regular basis, and it has become habitual. If we want to start changing that habit, which we have the capability of doing, I mean, our brains are, they're very pliable. We can make changes like that, but it's not necessarily a change that's going to happen instantly. So we have to become kind of dedicated on a daily basis, on an hour, sometimes hour to hour, minute by minute basis. I'm going to reprogram by focusing on 3 gratitudes, by focusing on the fact that I love the water and where it came from and who, whatever it is we can focus on to make that shift. But the point is, it is a change in habit, and habits can only change by making the new habit. You can't just eliminate a habit and make it go away. You have to replace it with something, and you got to replace it with something that actually serves you. So I want to bring that in.
Well, I think it does take vigilance, to take your point, because, there's no, like you can't just lose weight for a while and then that's it. Then you're done for good, right? It just doesn't work that way. In the same way, Debbie can't just jump on her trampoline for 5 minutes one time and become skinny. It doesn't work that way. So it does take constant vigilance. But when you start expanding your awareness towards these things, I think you can stop that negative ball rolling. And that's what I'll try to do, right? So if I'm getting down, I just jump off those train tracks, right? And think about those things. So like if you say somebody's got those bad habits, and think about what I said before, habits are the domain of the ego because they feel like they keep you safe. And if you think about that, that's so true, because the ego tries to keep you safe and those habits try to keep you safe. So those negative habits, you're alive, you've got food, water, and everything else. The ego doesn't see any need for change towards this happiness stuff. I don't need this stuff. I don't need this happiness. We're alive here, right? And, having practiced law for so long in criminal defense, all of it in criminal defense, I saw that, the ego at work in that regard, because, so many people go to prison and go back because it's their comfort zone and everything's taken care of for them right there, right? And people think that's nuts, but to some extent, we become prisoners of our own ego out at happy hour every Friday getting drunk, because that's how we're dealing with our unhappiness. We can become prisoners of our own mind and our own habits because of the ego. So if we jump off that train right away with constant vigilance, even if it's 3 things you're grateful for, like if you're starting to get negative, you can go, you don't have to text anybody. You can go, I'm grateful for my TV. I'm grateful for that I've got air conditioning. I'm grateful that I have food, whatever it is. I'm grateful for my breath, water, whatever it is. All that stuff, you can start jumping off that train and start taking those negative habits away. And then it also goes back to that question, who do you want to be today? Do you want to be somebody who's miserable? Maybe there's days you do, okay? Maybe there's days you need to cry it out. You need to have a breakthrough, those type of things, right? A release. You can start healing through your tears. Maybe you need to do that, right? But the real point of fact is you can't jump off that train right away and start retraining yourself, because jumping off that train track, eventually the ego will be forced to go with you.
Now, Susan also mentioned a very interesting point that I want to throw up on screen. She says, well, sometimes depression happens. You're not catching it fast enough, which is true. That can happen. the thing is, we don't have to be stopped there. Let's talk about why you don't have to be stopped there.
Yeah, Susan, I don't pretend to be a psychologist. I've, worked with psychologists before, and I remember the time in my life, and I wasn't diagnosed with clinical depression, but I think back I was depressed. After the Arias trial, I had my name thrown through the mud on a worldwide stage for 2.5 years, right?
Mm-hmm.
And my reputation as a lawyer was crap, and my reputation as a human being was crap, and all those things kind of pounded on me. And then I had this cancer diagnosis, and I started legitimately questioning to myself. I didn't share this with my wife or anything else, whether or not I wanted to go through chemotherapy, knowing, most people say, why wouldn't you do it? No, I knew what chemotherapy was going to do to my body. And I wondered if the life that I would live post chemotherapy was a life worth saving, knowing that this would be suicide by cancer, if you will, right?
Mm-hmm.
Just letting it go and letting it take its course and departing the planet because of what I've been through. And, looking back, I think there's a modicum of depression with that, right? And like I say, without being diagnosed or anything to that nature. But I started feeling like there was a greater purpose, that there was a different purpose, that there was a new purpose. So what helped me go on and get past that suicide by cancer was the idea that there was something else out there for me, and a promise to myself that I admit I broke it when I got done with chemotherapy, but only for a very short time, because I got a great reminder how uninspired I was by the practice of law. My promise was I wasn't going to live my remaining days, should I beat cancer, in the way I had my prior days. And typically that focused around my career. And so after I got through chemotherapy, I took a couple cases. I was very uninspired by it, and I realized I needed to move on. I needed to cut that cord, if you will. But along the way, and I hope this helps Susan too, is I started thinking about something I confronted myself with, was the question of, are you happy? And I say confronted because because it's easy to say, yeah, I'm happy, and just move on, because that doesn't mean change. But if you confront yourself with that question and you start breaking it down to areas in your life, and I would invite Susan the opportunity to do this, to start looking at those areas where she is and where she isn't happy. And then you can start focusing on the areas that you are happy and start building on those and start pulling yourself out of that depressive state.
That's a really good point. Yeah, because it is a transitional process that goes on. It's not an all or nothing. People often think it's an all or nothing. It's not. It's transitional, but it's a transitional that you have to take that inspired action on. You actually have to follow through on it.
And you're not depressed. Like people, so many times, and I've said this to Debbie, so many times we feel like whatever we're going through now is a permanent state of affairs.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not. It almost never is. It's always transitory. Everything about us is transitory. Our careers, maybe our marriages, our relationships, our friendships even, right? They're all transitory, and as are our feelings, and feelings are meant to be felt. And so when she starts working on feeling those feelings, both what's good and bad, I think they're going to start to flow through a person. And I think that helps a lot. And it helped me. Like I said, I'm no psychologist, but I think it helped me to experience those feelings and start processing them and letting them leave, as opposed to stay internal in my body.
So Neo Positivity is in the house. We just have to acknowledge him. Hey, you made it, Neo. Good to see you. How you doing, guy?
Oh, my goodness. I'm sorry for being so late. Hi, Kirk. Nice to meet you.
Hi. How are you?
Good. I had a meeting at 2:30, and I'm thinking I'm good. I'm like, all right, yeah, it's a huge meeting. And it was 2:30 her time, which is Texas time, which ran into, so it was like a scramble for me. I was like, I can't meeting. Huge meeting. Basically, I think I just started my son. I think I just started a practice where, well, basically I had a dentist office that I'll go and speak with once to everybody, and then 2 sessions a month to each of their employees. But there's 7 offices, which means I need more law of attraction minded people speaking up to teach these people the law of attraction and the benefits of it. So, Walt and Debbie, if you guys are looking to make a couple extra dollars,
All right.
people in dentist's office, dentistry has the highest depression and suicide rate of any profession.
Editorial comment from his son there, by the way.
I mean, that's the kind of show, that's the kind of note you end a show on, isn't it? You just, Walt, if you could isolate that sound effect and just, end every show with it, that would be great.
Oh man, but yeah, that's what happens when you're a stay-at-home parent.
But that's what happens when you tap into your joy.
Yeah.
That's what happens when you tap into your bliss. Can we get a from everybody, please? I mean, for real.
I'm happy. Yeah, that whole thing just happened. You guys were the first two people I thought of. I said, okay, well, if there's too many people for me to handle, which is going to be immediately, because you got to think, a dentist office with 12 employees, each get 2 sessions, plus the first. That's 25 hours a month worth of work. You guys know I don't work that much. No.
Well,
so I'm definitely going to be handing these offices off to you guys. And
Neil, I got to tell you though, the bright side of that is, I was a lawyer for over a dozen years, and there's so many unhappy lawyers out there.
Oh.
But and I coach lawyers. I've got some clients now who are lawyers, but it's amazing how few are willing to connect to their angst, connect to their depression and everything like that. So the bright side of that is I applaud all your dentists for doing that, because so many people in the legal community are just so convinced that their misery is just going to be a constant until they retire. We've been talking about that a little bit. So really it's such heartening news to hear that dentists are looking to move beyond their pain.
Absolutely.
It's a lot. Plus, they spend like $30,000 a year educating each of their employees. So to lose them to another dentist office, just leaving the dentistry industry completely would be such a shame. So yeah, I've been an avid advocate of that for a little bit now, and that meeting was crazy. So be ready for that, you guys. That's up next.
All right.
That is seriously awesome.
We're forearmed, that's for sure. Oh, by the way, JB was asking, how do you reach out to Neo Positivity? It's right on the screen there, neopositivity.com. That's where you go. It's the easy way to reach him.
Send me a message. I'll get it together. And if you guys ever want to go live, let me know. There's a link where you could just schedule it, and we'll go live and talk about law of attraction for 10, 15 minutes, any random afternoon. I need my fix. I didn't get my fix this week because I was late, but, I need my fix, my daily law of attraction dose. So
looks like JB wants to help out. He says, I would love to help teach people about LOA. So you got yourself another candidate there. There you go.
neosloasummit.com. Go to that website. That's the landing page for the summit. I want to see everybody there.
Beautiful,
November 20th.
All right.
Kirk, you're there too.
There you go. So I want to go back, though, to what we were talking about with Kirk, because this is a really important thing that we were talking about. We were talking about well, first of all, the habits that we get into, but also the fact that they can be treated as transitional. And I want to really hammer that point for a second, because I loved what you said. I loved how you really emphasized that life isn't a static thing, that we're not locked into something, and that we need to understand that. But it's not always easy to see, particularly if we're in that depressed state. I mean, when you're in that depressed state, you can't really see anything except the fact that you're so depressed. So I'm kind of curious, when you were there, because you've been there, you were in that place when you were dealing with, the aftermath of the case and the cancer and so forth. How did you break through? What made it easy for you to say, I am going to leave this state?
There was no tangibility to it, which is one of the things I think, that we're always, when we talked earlier about that demon of practicality that separates us from our imagination sometimes, right? We have this inability to connect to our feelings sometimes, right? Because it's supposed to be tangible. It's supposed to be this. It's supposed to be that. There has to be another path. So when I was at that state, and I remember it, it was October in Phoenix. It's when it starts to cool down. I'm out for a run, and I'm really thinking about this. And I just kept feeling that there was a bigger purpose. There was a different purpose to my life, and that I needed to go in that chemo chair, not so I could be a lawyer for another, 10 years, 15 years, and then retire. But so that I could start living life in a different way. And there was no definition to it, right? So that became consistent with that promise I talked about, that I wasn't going to live my remaining years the way I had my prior years. So that became the drive without any real definition. It wasn't like, I'm going to go do this, I'm going to go do that. It was about, following my heart. And when I came out and had issues with the state bar, and I made, I don't feel like I did anything wrong, but I asked for voluntary disbarment. Not because I felt like I didn't do anything wrong, because I felt like that new purpose, I needed to detach completely from my own life so I could fully embrace the new. So I did something. We were talking about Kyle Cease earlier. Ultimately, I asked for disbarment. That was awesome. It felt great. It happened in November of 2016, and it was like a heck yes moment, right? Yeah. And then ultimately, one of the things I did, and this, like I said, this goes back to something I learned from Kyle Cease, but I took my certificate of admissions to the State Bar of Arizona. And this is the kind of thing, while we were talking off the air, that I had wanted to be a lawyer since I was 5 or 6 years old, grade school.
Right. Mm-hmm.
And I went out into my backyard in November, some point in time, and I took it out of its frame, like we always do. We put it in these big fancy frames so our ego can feel the prestige and we can share it with others, right? And the faux prestige, I should put that in quotes there. And I burned it, and I set it on fire, and I watched it burn. And I didn't.
How did that feel?
It felt awesome.
Yeah.
It felt awesome. It felt healing. It felt awesome. It felt transitory.
Wow.
It was the fact that the old life, and I think Debbie, when I was on her show, we lost Neil.
Uh-oh.
He must have been bored with what I said, but
we're not bored. Don't worry about it.
It was a transitory moment. It was a change moment. And Debbie, I think it was on Debbie's show, she asked me if I filmed it. And I said, no, I didn't, because I wanted to experience it. And so many times we see life through the filter of a phone when we're filming events instead of fully experiencing them. So I took some pictures at the ashes, but I just sat there and watched it burn and realized that part of my life was over. And I can't say that it's been like some kind of smooth sailing since that point in time, but at the same time, it's been a joyful journey. Some of those practicality things, like I was making good money as a lawyer, you have the prestige of it all, but I'm having fun. Now I'm having way more fun. I'm in complete control of my schedule. Things are happening that I never thought I'd be an actor. I never thought I'd be on a reality show. In August, I got to go to Dallas and play the role of a senator. I've got some other roles coming up, in the future. And I'm doing things like this, the things that I never thought I would do. Doing commentary on Court TV. I was on there 3 hours yesterday because it's freaking fun.
That's the best.
And that's
reason.
it.
And I can see you as U.S. Senator, by the way. I mean, you fit the profile. It's perfect.
Totally.
From Walt, I will take that as a compliment, but most people's version of senators that could be seen as derogatory, Walt.
Yeah, that's true. You're right.
Knowing you a little bit now, I know it was all in said in love, but so.
Well, I mean, there was a time years and years ago where U.S. Senator was an esteemed position.
Yes.
Today, you're right. It's not quite that same sense of esteem, but there was a time where it was actually considered a very, very good thing. So that's what I was thinking of. Yes. But anyway, thank you very much for being on the show. Thank you for sharing your story.
Cool.
What a great story. Really, really good.
You bet. You bet.
I mean,
thank you both for having me.
We got to refer everybody to where to find out more about it. It's KirkNurmi.com, KirkNurmi.com is the place to find out more about what he's doing and what's been going on and so forth.
My books, my coaching, all that stuff. I do inspirational messages through my fan park, which is kind of like Cameo. So,
Beautiful.
Yeah. So it makes it's a fun thing. So allows me to connect with people in all different worlds. So,
and thank you, Debbie, for bringing him onto the show. You're responsible there, girl. Thank you so much.
I certainly am. Well, that's why when you got on earlier, I said, you're welcome.
That's
You're
what
welcome.
that was. Okay. Got
You're
it.
welcome.
All right.
I was setting the precedents because, Kirk, you're one of my favorite people out there.
Oh,
I look forward to meeting you in person, and just thank you again for being here and being present and bringing your inspiration and light. I hope everybody has really got what they needed today out of this message because it was huge. So if you are just joining us, go back, listen to the replay. Kirk, thank you.
And
Wonderful. Walt, I love you. Thank you.
I love you too, Debbie. And how can you not love Debbie G? I mean, come on.
no kidding. But, she says she's anxious to meet me, but I might have to put her through a workout. I might have to take her to the gym. She said she's coming to Arizona. And Joe can film it if he's not laughing too hard to hold the camera steady. That'll be on the next LOA today. It'll just be Debbie G's workout. We'll just plop it up there. Yeah.
Make it a feature. I can see that.
We'll put some flash dance music behind it and everything, right?
Oh yeah.
He's a maniac.
Maniac.
If Joe's still watching, he's probably already creating some ideas. So.
Are you kidding? He's probably going to produce the thing.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. He's punching up the background music. He's got some ideas.
He's getting on the phone right now to find the money for it. I mean,
that's right. All right.
Well, thank you very much.
Well,
We appreciate you being on. Thank you to all of our live stream listeners, and especially thank you to podcast listeners everywhere. We'll see you all next time here on LOA Today. Goodbye, everybody.
Peace.